The Old Woman and the Stranger. An African folktale of kindness and destiny. Once upon a time, in a small, sun-kissed village nestled between rolling green hills and a dense, whispering forest, there lived an old woman named Mama Zola. Her wrinkled face bore the marks of time, her hands rough from years of toil, but her heart was as warm as the golden sun that bathed the village each morning. Though she had little, she was known throughout the land for her kindness. No traveler passed her door without receiving a warm smile, a kind word, and if she had anything to spare, a portion of whatever humble meal she had prepared that day. Despite her generosity, Mama Zola was poor. Her home, a small mud hut with a thatched roof, stood at the edge of the village, away from the wealthier homes of the traders and chiefs. She had no children to care for her, no husband to share her burdens, yet she never complained. Instead, she worked from sunrise to sunset, tending to a tiny garden where she grew yams, maize, and a few medicinal herbs. The village was a lively place, full of bustling traders, laughing children, and gossiping elders. But despite the warmth of the community, there was also selfishness. The wealthier villagers rarely shared with the poor. Their houses were filled with food, but they turned away the hungry. Their storerooms overflowed with grain, yet they guarded their wealth jealously. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of crimson and gold, a stranger arrived at the village. He was tall and thin, his clothes tattered and dusty from travel. His eyes, dark as the night sky, held a wisdom that was both ancient and unreadable. He walked with the slow, deliberate steps of someone who had seen many lands, yet his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. The villagers, seeing his rugged appearance, quickly turned away. Some muttered under their breath, others simply ignored him, continuing their daily routines without a second glance. The stranger, undeterred, approached the wealthiest homes first, knocking softly on their elaborately carved doors. "Please," he said in a voice both gentle and weary. "I have traveled a long way. I am hungry and tired. Might you spare some food or water?" But each time, he was turned away. "I have nothing to give," said the merchant, whose storeroom was filled with sacks of grain. "I barely have enough for my own family," said the chief, though his servants prepared a feast inside his grand home. The stranger sighed and continued down the road. Just when he thought he would have to sleep hungry, he saw a small hut at the far end of the village. A single candle flickered in the window. Gathering his last ounce of strength, he approached the door and knocked. Mama Zola, who had just finished grinding maize for her evening meal, opened the door and saw the weary traveler standing before her. She did not ask who he was or where he came from. She simply saw a man in need. "Come in, child," she said kindly, though he was clearly much younger than she. "You must be exhausted." She led him inside, where a small fire crackled in the center of the hut, casting a warm glow on the mud walls. From a clay pot, she ladled out a bowl of steaming maize porridge and set it before him. Then she poured him a cup of cool water from her clay jug. "I have only this simple meal," she said apologetically. "But you are welcome to share it." The stranger ate in silence, savoring every bite as if it were the finest feast. When he finished, he looked at Mama Zola and smiled. "You have given me all that you have, though I am a stranger to you." "Why?" Mama Zola chuckled, stirring the embers of the fire with a stick. "My son, when the sun rises, it does not choose whom to shine upon. Kindness is like the sun, it must be given freely, or it is not true kindness at all." The stranger nodded, his dark eyes twinkling with something Mama Zola could not quite place. "You have a good heart, Mama," he said. "And because of that, you shall be rewarded." Mama Zola only laughed. "Kindness is its own reward, my child. But you are welcome to rest here for the night." The next morning, the stranger was gone. The old woman assumed he had simply continued his journey. But as she stepped outside, she gasped. Her once barren garden was now overflowing with lush green plants, ripe with vegetables. The small clay pot in which she kept her maize was suddenly brimming, as if it had been filled overnight. Her old water jug, which had always been half empty, was now so full that water spilled over the edges. And strangest of all, hanging on the wall of her hut was a beautifully woven cloth embroidered with golden threads. News of Mama Zola's sudden good fortune spread through the village like wildfire. The villagers whispered among themselves, puzzled by the miracle. How could this happen, they wondered. She was as poor as any of us just yesterday. The wealthier villagers, realizing that they had turned away the stranger while Mama Zola had welcomed him, felt a deep shame. The merchant who had refused the traveler's request for food found that his storeroom, once full, was now inexplicably empty. The chief, who had denied the stranger a meal, discovered that his once thriving crops had withered overnight. It was then that the village elder, a wise man who had seen many years, spoke. That was no ordinary traveler, he said. He was a spirit in disguise, sent to test the hearts of men. Realizing their mistake, the villagers came to Mama Zola, seeking her wisdom. Teach us, they begged. How can we be like you? Mama Zola smiled, looking out at the village that had once overlooked her. It is simple, she said. Give without expecting. Love without conditions. Help without hesitation. From that day forward, the village changed. No traveler was ever turned away again. The villagers shared their food, their homes, and their kindness. And in doing so, they found that their own lives were richer, not just in wealth, but in happiness, in love, and in community. And Mama Zola. She lived the rest of her days in quiet peace, knowing that a single act of kindness had transformed not just her life but the hearts of an entire village. The moral of the story: helping others brings rewards in unexpected ways. True kindness, given freely, will always return to you in abundance. The end.